Leadership literature is filled with fluffy, superficial content that lacks substance and scientific rigor. The sense of leadership research refers to common theoretical, methodological, and interpretation errors that compromise the integrity, reliability, and applicability of leadership research findings. In my previous video, I introduced sin number 1, conflating behavior with perception, and sin number 2, circular reasoning. Today, I'll introduce sin number 3, mislabeling leadership. The label of leadership is attractive and profitable. The label of leadership is attractive because it carries connotations of power, prestige, status, and success, which resonate deeply with individual aspirations and humans' innate desire for power, achievement, and social affiliation. On a psychological level, being associated with leadership can fulfill our desires for self-improvement, influence, and social recognition. People are drawn to leadership as a means of fulfilling those psychological needs, which in turn drives the market for leadership-labeled content and services. For example, teamwork and collaboration is rebranded as shared or distributed leadership. Listening to team members, mentoring, and advocating for work-life balance are rebranded as caring leadership, upholding ethical principles and fulfilling moral responsibilities are rebranded ethical leadership, moral leadership, or value-based leadership. Navigating technological changes is rebranded as technology leadership. Even behaviors that undermine the team's morale or organizational goals, such as manipulation, creating a toxic work environment, and engaging in unethical practices, are labeled as destructive leadership. Humans are social creatures. Placing any individual in a group, this individual will inherently make some kind of impact. Does it mean that we label everything as leadership and we label every individual as a leader? Right now, artificial intelligence is a hot topic. I wouldn't be surprised if someone coined the term artificial intelligence leadership, if it hasn't already been done, to describe the ability to leverage AI for organizational change. The label of leadership is also profitable because it opens up market for professional development, consulting, and education. The demand for leadership skills is perennial and widespread across all sectors of the economy, creating a ready market for any product or service that promise to improve leadership skills. By the way, what do leadership skills mean? Do they include all skills that include communication skills, charisma, decision-making, emotional intelligence, strategic thinking, adaptability, team building, problem solving, vision and inspiration, and so on and so forth? The term leadership skills, like leadership, is so nebulous that it becomes a catch-all phrase that covers a wide spectrum of skills. This broad scope ensures that leadership development can be marketed to anyone interested in personal or professional improvement, thereby broadening the market base. Leadership research literature is flooded with papers claiming to be about leadership. Let me use a very popular leadership theory, transformational leadership, as an example. Despite different definitions, transformational leadership typically means that leaders transform followers through leadership behaviors in 4 dimensions: individualized consideration, intellectual stimulation, individualized influence, also known as charisma, and inspiration. In an article titled Intellectual Failure and Ideological Success in Organization Studies, the Case of Transformational Leadership, published in Journal of Management Inquiry in 2016. Authors argued the popularity of transformational leadership and similar leadership theories is not due to their empirical robustness or theoretical clarity, but rather their ideological appeal. Here, ideology means the painting of a positive and appealing picture legitimizing certain interests and a specific social order. The function of ideology is to make contestable concepts less contentious, also known as decontestation, and to cope with the ambiguity of meaning. In the case of transformational leadership, its ideological character compellingly promotes the notion of leadership as a universal remedy or panacea capable of addressing a wide range of organizational challenges. This broad appeal is grounded in the seductive promise that through the adoption of transformational leadership practices, leaders can significantly transform their organizations, transcend typical operational limitations, and achieve unprecedented levels of organizational effectiveness and success. This ideological framing of transformational leadership taps into a deep-seated cultural reverence for charismatic visionary leadership as a critical determinant of organizational success. This narrative conveniently gloss over the complex nature of organizational dynamics and the often contingent effectiveness of leadership styles, opting instead for a more simplified and universally appealing portrayal of leaders' role in organizations. As a result, the popularity of transformational leadership is propelled not by a solid foundation of indisputable empirical evidence demonstrating its universal applicability and efficacy across diverse organizational contexts, but by its ability to resonate with widespread culturally embedded ideals of heroic leadership. This is the zombie idea in leadership number one, leaders as saviors. Zombie ideas are ideas or practices that, despite being proven ineffective or outdated by rigorous research and strong empirical evidence, continue to persist and remain popular. They are dead ideas, but are still walking among us and refuse to die. Another problem with transformational leadership is that it has evolved into an exceptionally broad and inclusive definition, including a wide array of behaviors and traits and outcomes that has led to conceptual overreach, by including a wide range of positive traits, such as inspirational motivation, intellectual stimulation, individualized consideration, and individualized influence. Transformational leadership has become nebulous, difficult to distinguish from other effective leadership styles. This catch-all definition of transformational leadership complicates efforts to empirically validate its distinctiveness and efficacy because the wide range of behaviors and traits attributed to transformational leadership can overlap significantly with those associated with other leadership theories, such as servant leadership, ethical leadership, and even certain aspects of transactional leadership. Whenever saying positive a leader does can be labeled as transformational, the term loses its explanatory power and it becomes merely descriptive of good leadership rather than offering a precise theoretical explanation for leadership practice and development. Moreover, it's unclear how each of the four dimensions of transformational leadership is selected. Why are those dimensions included? Why are other dimensions excluded? What's the justification for inclusion and exclusion? Transformational leadership also falls short in specifying a clear causal model that describes how each of its four dimensions uniquely influences mediating processes and outcomes. It is also unclear how transformational leaders exert their influence through each pathway, which may be influenced by contextual or moderating factors. The lack of specificity in those causal relationships complicates the application and empirical testing of transformational leadership. How do we redeem this sense of leadership, mislabeling everything as leadership? Instead of starting with what leadership is, we need to ask what leadership is not. This approach helps us set clear boundaries around leadership and distinguish it from other organizational behaviors and roles that are often conflated under the broad umbrella of leadership. But identifying non-leadership factors that contribute to organizational success, such as individual competence, collaborative teamwork, and organizational systems, we can begin to isolate the unique contributions of leadership itself. To do so, we can use discriminant validity to set the boundaries. Discriminant validity is a measure of how theoretically different constructs are in fact unrelated. Applying discriminant validity to leadership research, we can set explicit boundaries that differentiate leadership from other constructs contributing to organizational effectiveness. By rigorously identifying factors unrelated to leadership, we can sharpen the focus on what exclusively constitutes leadership. This separation is important for isolating leaders' unique contributions from those of other positive organizational behaviors and systems that are frequently aggregated under the catch-all label of leadership. Moreover, this process also means critically examining the assumptions underlying current leadership theories and challenging the overgeneralization of leadership qualities. For example, traits like empathy, decisiveness, and innovation can be valuable in many roles, not solely in leadership positions and roles. Recognizing this, leadership research and practice should focus on the dynamics and effects that are uniquely contributable to leadership roles, such as the ability to inspire collective action towards a shared goal, navigate a complex strategic landscape, and create an organizational culture that aligns with ethical and organizational goals. By asking what leadership is not, we can clarify our understanding of leadership and conduct more rigorous research on leadership.